for the throwdown, the hits about to go down. Me and Snoop about to clown.
In this video, I'll do a breakdown of all the featurings between Snoop Dogg and 2Pac. They were the biggest stars on the Death Row label and they made some classic tracks together. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel. And now let's start off with the first collaboration that we will cover in this video. And the first collaboration that we will cover is the Ides commercial. And Ides is a malt liquor manufactured by the Pabst Brewing Company. Ides gained prominence during the late 80s and early 90s using celebrity endorsements by rap artists and several tracks for Ides promotion from Death Row artists. In '96, Snoop Dogg and 2Pac recorded a video commercial and the beat was produced by DJ Pooh and it was straight fire. 2Pac does the first verse and Snoop does the second verse and they both drop some heat. And up next you can see a small clip of the commercial.
Introducing a special brew made for a chosen few. I'm thugged out. I'm back to the nearest liquor stuff. To get myself some blueberry, you act like you don't know.
And now let's move on to the second collaboration that we will cover in this video. And the second track on the list that both Snoop Dogg and 2Pac were featured on is Only Move for the Money. Ides was also featured on it and he also produced the beat. And Badass from the LBC crew, rest in peace, was also featured on the track. And by the way, if you want to know more about the LBC crew and the unreleased original album they recorded in the 90s under Doggy Style Records, which was a sub-label of Death Row Records, you need to check out this video and you can find it on the channel. But now let's get back to the Only Move for the Money track. An alternate title for this track is These Three Words. It was recorded in '96 and for the beat a sample was used of Turn Your Love Around, which was a track by George Benson. Only Move for the Money with Snoop Dogg featured on the track was never officially released. There's also another version that was released by Ides on the I Got Love in the Streets EP in 2002 titled Only Move for the Money, So We Coming Up. On this version, Snoop Dogg's verses were removed and replaced with verses from Ides, and the beat sounds very similar to the original version featuring Snoop Dogg. And in his first verse, 2Pac also dissed Bad Boy Records.
I love niggas open fire when I blast at you. Everybody dies, bad boy massacre. I laugh at you.
And if you want to know more about all 2Pac's diss tracks to Biggie, you can check out this video and you can find it on the channel. And Snoop Dogg's first verse may sound very familiar because he used it on several tracks such as May I, which was released on the Dead Man Walking album, and he also used it on the track We Just Wanna Party With You featuring JD that was released on the Men in Black movie soundtrack, and he also used it on an unreleased track that was titled Eastsiders featuring Trey D and Dez.
Quick to bust, just like Daz Dillinger, but that's the little homie and I'm the big homie, Snoop Dogg, Corleone. Quick to bust, just like Daz Dillinger, but that's the little homie and I'm the big homie, Snoop Dogg, Corleone. Quick to bust, just like Daz Dillinger, but that's the little homie and I'm the big homie, Snoop Dogg, Corleone. Quick to bust, just like Daz Dillinger, but that's the little homie and I'm the big homie, Snoop Dogg, Corleone.
And now let's move on to the next track that featured both 2Pac and Snoop Dogg. The third track that we will cover in this video is Out the Moon, that was released on the Gridlock movie soundtrack in '97. The beat was produced by LT Hutton, Superfly and Snoop Dogg. The track features Snoop Dogg, 2Pac, Superfly, Badass, Technique and Trey D. And as I have already covered in the video about all 2Pac's diss tracks to Biggie, 2Pac also fired shots at Biggie and Bad Boy Records in his verse on Out the Moon.
Go tell them busters up at Bad Boy Records. Fat Trick got a big mouth, Buster better check it.
There's also an original version of the track that does not feature 2Pac but Lil C Style instead, who was another former member of the LBC crew. But due to a dispute between Lil C Style and Snoop, they split up and Lil C Style's verse was replaced by that of 2Pac.
But now I'm 19 in and out casinos. Even though I'm underage, it really don't matter. Drop 1,000 a bet like Tony Montana, straight gangster.
Lil C Style is currently serving a life sentence in prison. And if you want to know the full story about his case, his background, him being a member of the DPG, his beef with Snoop Dogg and all the tracks he was featured on, you can check out this video on the channel. The dispute between Lil C-Style and Snoop Dogg was also the reason why he was not featured on Snoop's second album, The Dogfather, and other members of the LBC crew were featured on several tracks on that album. And I've also made a video that covers all the tracks that were recorded during the Dogfather studio sessions. The video is very detailed and covers more than 40 leftover tracks of the Dogfather album. And now let's move on to the fourth collaboration track by Snoop Dogg and 2Pac that we will cover in this video. The track title is Street Life, featuring 2Pac, Snoop Dogg, Prince Idol Joe and Vel Young, and the track was recorded in March of '96, and 2Pac recorded his verse a couple of months later in June '96. The beat was produced by Dez, Superfly and LT Hutton, and the track was never officially released, but at some point it was intended for the Dogfather album, as I've also mentioned in the video about the Dogfather leftover tracks, and at some point the track was also intended for the Gridlock movie soundtrack, but ultimately didn't make it onto either project. Several versions have been leaked online, and there's also a version where Dez can be heard rapping Snoop Dogg's lyrics.
Straight for deep, flip the script. Came up quick, I got some riders who got my back. Snoop Coleon, always down the jack.
Flip the script. Came up quick and got some riders who got my back. Snoop Coleon, I'm always down to jack.
Most likely Dez wrote the lyrics for Snoop, and therefore he recorded this version as a reference track. Prince Idol Joe can also be heard at the beginning of the track, giving a shout out to Snoop Dogg and saying that he is glad that Snoop Dogg is back home.
This one dedicated to my brethren, Snoop Dogg. Glad to see you home, baby.
And the reason for this is that this track was recorded shortly after Snoop Dogg defeated his murder case. I also made a bio video about Prince Idol Joe, so if you want to know more about his story, you can check out the video that you can find on the channel. And now let's move on to the next track that we will cover in this video. And the fifth track on the list is the original version of All About You, featuring Dru Down, The Outlaws, Nate Dogg and Snoop Dogg. It was recorded on October 30th in '95, and the beat was produced by Johnny J, and a sample was used of the track Candy by Cameo. The original version features Snoop Dogg talking at the end of the track, and later Snoop Dogg was removed from the track and replaced with a verse from YGD the Top Dog. He was a rapper from Compton who was brought to the Death Row label as a replacement for Snoop Dogg, and he sounded and looked kinda similar as him. The version featuring YGD the Top Dog was released on 2Pac's Greatest Hits album, and he was also featured in a music video that was recorded on May 12 in '96 and released later that year.
Want an autograph placed on her napkin. After she asks, ain't you the top dog and don't you be rapping? She know it's crack.
And a little fun fact is that on the All Eyes on Me album, the title of the track is spelled as All About You without the letter A in About, and on the Greatest Hits album, the title is spelled as All About You with the letter A in the beginning of About. And there's also an alternate version of the music video with an extra verse from 2Pac, and with the verses from the Outlaws taken off.
Drinking liquor, kissing to help you know me quick. While I keep working on your zipper, my tongue kissing. Any position, I'm fortified to do the mission. Move your hips and groove to this.
And up next is the sixth collaboration track between Snoop Dogg and 2Pac that we will cover in this video. And this track's titled Life's So Hard, that was recorded by 2Pac and released on the gang-related movie soundtrack as the second track on the album. The beat was produced by Dez, and 2Pac does the verses and Snoop laid the vocals for the chorus. And in an interview, rapper Swoop G from Long Beach said that he was present when 2Pac recorded the track, and Swoop G almost jumped on it to do the vocals for the chorus, but in the end Snoop Dogg took that spot. Most likely the version Swoop G was referring to in his interview was recorded around the time the Murder Was the Case movie soundtrack was being recorded. This also explains why Swoop G was present when 2Pac recorded Life So Hard, because Swoop G also made his first appearance on the Murder Was the Case movie soundtrack on the track Who Got Some Gangsta-ish, and Snoop Dogg, Dez and Corrupt were also featured on that track, together with Lil C-Style, who was also making his debut on that track. The Murder Was the Case movie soundtrack was officially released in October '94, which was still before 2Pac was officially signed to Death Row Records, but the track got scrapped from the official release and was later used with a different beat for the gang-related movie soundtrack, which was released in '97. Another interesting fact is that Snoop Dogg's Lost Sessions album also features a track titled Life's Hard, featuring KC and JoJo and Big Pimpin' Delamont. This song is a dedication track to 2Pac that was recorded after 2Pac's death. On the song, Snoop raps the first and second verses that Tupac rapped on Life So Hard.
Travel through my mind and my blind, it's a shame young niggas getting murdered straight took out the game as I sit here puffing on a cigarette.
Travel through my mind and my blind, it's a shame young niggas getting murdered straight took out the game as I sit here puffing on a cigarette.
Plugging to the fullest, got my strap from a bullet on the first motherfucker that can outrun a bullet.
Plugging to the fullest, got my strap, I'ma pull it on the first motherfucker who can outrun a bullet.
There's also an unreleased original version with a different beat.
I know remorse as I take another sip from the liquor, I spit my sick dog. What did you see? Life so hard on a nigga when you living like a
And up next is the 7th collaboration track by Snoop Dogg and Tupac that we will cover in this video. And the track title is Untouchables, featuring Tupac, Snoop Dogg, Ides, and 2 members of the Outlaws. Superfly and LT Hutton produced the track, and it was recorded in May '96.
Triple beam dreams make them fiend for crack scenes. Baby, you fucking make a million. Bustin' from on top of the building, my victim addicted to killing. I can see it in my eyes, right?
When you in the fast lane, having money and fame, you got to always check the game. Look here, maintain, cause this game is a cold thing.
Now let's move on to the 8th track that we will cover in this video. And this track's titled Worldwide Timepiece, also known as International, and an alternate title is Bitches. This track was recorded during the One Nation album studio sessions in '96, and the beat was produced by the Capital LS, and the track features Tupac, Snoop Dogg, Greg Nice, Capital LS, and Asu. Tupac dropped the verse on the record, and Snoop Dogg did some talking on the outro of the track. Online you can also find some video footage of Tupac and Snoop Dogg both vibing to this track after it was recorded. And now let's move on to the next track on our list. And the track title is They Don't Know, which is also known as Cure for This, and the beat was produced by Johnny J and used a sample from Diana Ross' song Love Hangover. It's a dope freestyle session, and it was recorded in February '96 on the day that Snoop Dogg beat his murder case, and later that night Tupac and Snoop Dogg recorded this track to celebrate.
And if there's a cure for this, I don't need it, I don't want it. And if there's a cure for this, I don't want it, I don't need it.
Up next we'll cover the 10th collaboration track by Tupac and Snoop Dogg. The track title is Just Watching, and it featured Tupac, Snoop Dogg, Dez, and Corrupt, and it was recorded in February '96. The beat was produced by Dez from the Dog Pound, and a sample of the song Just Chopping by the Dramatics was used for it. And in his verse, Snoop Dogg also mentioned the time that Death Row went on a holiday to Cabo, and you can find several pictures of that holiday online.
I'm taking trips to Cabo with my Death Row family. We out on the road, smoking diamonds and gold. We pushing yachts and jet skis and smoking on hella weed.
And according to several stories, Suge Knight saved Tupac from almost drowning in the sea during that holiday. And because Suge saved his life, Tupac later recorded the track Never Had a Friend Like Me. And now let's move on to the 11th track that we will cover in this video. And this track is one that we all know, and it's two of America's Most Wanted. The track featured Tupac and Snoop Dogg, and Dez produced the beat. It was released on Tupac's album All Eyes on Me, and the song was also released as a promotional single for the album on May 7 in '96. The song peaked at number 46 on the US Billboard Hot R&B/hip hop chart. A fun fact is that Snoop's verse is a cover from the Radioactivity rap.
Blood, gang banging, everybody in the party doing dope slanging. You got to have papers in this world. You might get your purse snatched before your eyes swirl.
Thugs, gang bangers, and it's thugs and put and dope swingers. You got to have knowledge in this world. You might get your purse snatched before your eyes swirl.
A music video for two of America's Most Wanted was also recorded, and this version has clean alternate lyrics and an arpeggio added to the beat. And now let's move on to the final track that we will cover in this video. And this track is also one that we all know, and it's Wanted, Dead or Alive. It features 2Pac, Snoop Dogg, Vel Young, and it also has uncredited vocals from Charlie Wilson. The track was released in January 97 on the soundtrack for the movie Gridlock. A 12-inch single was also released for the track, and they also recorded a music video. The music video features older clips of 2Pac because he had already passed away when the music video was shot. The music video was released in January 97 and the track samples Dance Floor by Zeb and Roger, and it's a dope track. Online you can also find an unreleased original version of this track in very low quality, but I think this is a fake fan-made mix because the beat sounds very similar as EA Ski's Gangsta Funk, so I think somebody just took that beat and added the vocals to it. Up next you can hear a snippet of the low quality version that leaked online. Another fun fact is that there are some rumors that the vocals of Wanted, Dead or Alive were actually recorded on the beat of two of America's Most Wanted, and this version has never been leaked online. There are a few tracks that aren't actual collaboration tracks recorded by 2Pac and Snoop Dogg together, but are still interesting enough to mention in this video. On 2Pac's posthumous album Until the End of Time, there's a track called This Ain't Livin', and the original version of the track was leaked online and features a different beat. On the version that was released on the Until the End of Time album, some of 2Pac's vocals were removed, but on the original version you can hear that he probably recorded some vocals as reference verses for Snoop, because he literally says, "It's Snoop Dogg, Pac, would you ride with me?" And later in the track he also says, "I disappeared, reappeared as the Dogfather." And the Dogfather was also the title of Snoop Dogg's second album. Around that period, Snoop referred to himself as the Dogfather on several tracks, and the way 2Pac delivers these vocals also makes it sound like he was using a flow that was typical for Snoop Dogg.
Throw your hands in the air, it's a robbery. It's Snoop Dogg, Pop, would you ride with me? To watch me fall farther, I disappeared, reappeared as the Dogfather. Follow me now.
The vocals where we referred to Snoop and the Dogfather were edited out on the Until the End of Time version. So it's very likely that the original intention was for this track to become a collaboration between 2Pac and Snoop Dogg. However, it is unknown whether a version featuring Snoop Dogg's actual vocals was ever recorded. Another fun fact is that the beat on the original version of This Ain't Living sounds very similar to the beat that was used on the track Road to Glory. And that was a dedication track to Mike Tyson that 2Pac recorded for Mike Tyson's fight against Frank Bruno.
Throw your hands up, Mr. Bruno. Ride, Big Mike Tyson about to brutalize that ass tonight.
There's also a video on the channel that goes more in depth to the connection between Mike Tyson, 2Pac and Death Row Records, and in that video I also break down several Death Row tracks that were dedicated to Mike Tyson. So if you want to know more about that, make sure to check it out. Another thing I want to mention in this video is that Snoop Dogg is also featured on 2Pac's song Pac's Life, the remix from 2Pac's posthumous album Pac's Life. T.I., Ashanti and Chris Starr are also featured on this remix. On the original version, which was also leaked online, 2Pac and the Outlaws are featured, while Snoop Dogg does not appear on that version. However, for the sake of completeness, I still wanted to mention the Pac's Life remix featuring Snoop Dogg in this video. And on the outro of Snoop Dogg's second album, The Dogfather, you can see that Machiavelli is also mentioned as a featured artist. This isn't an actual track, but it's a 42-second audio clip from a live performance by Death Row Records where Snoop Dogg and 2Pac were together on stage. And another thing I want to mention is that on Snoop Dogg's track titled East Side Party, which was released on the album Death Row Snoop Doggy Dogg at his best, the greatest hits, a short clip can be heard at the beginning of the track in which 2Pac says this. This clip is taken from the outro of the track Initiated, which was released on Dez's album Retaliation, Revenge and Get Back in '98. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you learned something new by watching it. Make sure to check out the channel for more interesting videos and drop a like and subscribe if you want to support the channel. And make sure to stay tuned for more videos coming up soon.
No answers to questions, I'm trying to get up on it. My brother dog and me, eternally the most wanted.